One of the most renowned and influential monarchs in English history was Queen Elizabeth I, the last Tudor ruler. Throughout her lengthy reign, she presided over a period of immense cultural flourishing. Renowned figures like Shakespeare rose to prominence, contributing to a vibrant artistic landscape. Despite her accomplishments, Elizabeth faced significant challenges to her rule. Many in England opposed her Protestant faith and favored Mary, Queen of Scots, a Catholic claimant to the throne. Elizabeth contended with numerous plots against her life, ultimately resulting in Mary's execution. Despite these challenges, Elizabeth successfully navigated her reign, famously thwarting the Spanish Armada's invasion. She enjoyed widespread adoration from her subjects, who couldn't fathom a realm without her leadership. However, as the year 1603 approached, Elizabeth's once illustrious reign began to wane. She grappled with her mortality, coming to terms with the end of her life. However, eventually, she would be laid to rest in a grand tomb. Yet, this final resting place was violated, revealing shocking, peculiar, and extraordinary discoveries. On the early morning of March 24, 1603, Queen Elizabeth I passed away. By the standards of the Tudor era, she was considered a venerable lady, having ruled for many decades. Her death marked the end of the Tudor dynasty, as she was succeeded by the Scottish King James, invited to ascend to both the English and Scottish thrones, inaugurating the Stuart dynasty. This transition would have likely deeply perturbed her father, Henry VIII, who had once forbidden the Stuarts from inheriting the throne. Elizabeth had battled illness for several months, with her health steadily declining. Many in her circle had begun to anticipate her imminent passing. Throughout her life, she had survived numerous deadly diseases prevalent in the 16th century, including smallpox, the scars of which still marked her face. However, in her last days, Queen Elizabeth I experienced feelings of despondency, often appearing distant and lost in deep contemplation. It is believed that she reflected on many of the weighty decisions she made during her reign as Queen of England, including the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, a fellow anointed monarch. Elizabeth worried that her actions might jeopardize her chances of entering heaven. Approaching the age of 70, she grappled with uncertainties about the afterlife. During her final days, Elizabeth was attended to by her devoted servants, closest friends, and the Archbishop of Canterbury, who assured her of divine mercy and comforted her with the belief that she would be reunited with her departed loved ones in heaven. They urged her to draw strength from her faith in God as she approached her final moments. However, her passing was not without struggle. She experienced difficulty speaking as her throat swelled due to illness. Eventually, the Queen relinquished her battle against the illness that ultimately claimed her life. In the intimate confines of her private chambers within Richmond Palace, Queen Elizabeth drew her final breaths. Before her passing, she imparted several instructions regarding the proceedings to follow after her death. It was widely known that Elizabeth harbored a strong aversion to the traditional practice of disemboweling and burying the internal organs of monarchs separately from their bodies. Despite her expressed wishes against this procedure, physicians and doctors disregarded her request. Following her demise, Elizabeth's body underwent the customary procedure of evisceration, with her heart and other organs removed and her abdominal cavity filled with spices to delay decomposition. In retrospect, this embalming process proved fortuitous, as it prevented a potential catastrophe during her funeral procession. The movement of the coffin could have led to the release of volatile gases from her body, potentially causing an explosion that might have damaged the coffin. However, thanks to the embalming, this risk was mitigated. After her embalming, Elizabeth's remains were placed in a lead-lined coffin adorned with intricate designs, including images of roses, within Richmond Palace. The procession then commenced, making its way to Westminster Abbey, a journey marked by several significant stages. The solemn journey of Queen Elizabeth's coffin began as it was transported down the River Thames aboard the royal barge to the Palace of Whitehall. Draped in black velvet, the coffin was vigilantly guarded by 6 of Elizabeth's ladies-in-waiting. It was a poignant moment for the people of London, who mourned the loss of their beloved queen, with each stroke of the oars seeming to echo their collective sorrow. During the procession, there were reports of tears streaming from the eyes of onlookers, mirroring the grief felt throughout the city. Despite the alleged risk of an explosion, Queen Elizabeth's body remained securely enclosed within the coffin, wrapped in cloth. The procession continued, eventually reaching its destination at Westminster Abbey on April 28, 1603. Witnesses describe the streets of Westminster as teeming with a diverse multitude of mourners, filling every available space to pay their respects. The atmosphere was heavy with sadness, marked by a pervasive sense of mourning rarely witnessed before. Atop Elizabeth's coffin lay a large effigy of the Queen, adorned in her regal parliamentary robes and crowned, holding symbols of power in her hands. Crafted from a combination of wax and wood, the effigy served as a poignant reminder of the Queen's enduring legacy. This marked one of the earliest occasions when the common folk of London had the opportunity to glimpse their Queen's likeness, as portraits were not easily accessible to those of lesser means. The coffin, drawn by 4 horses, made its solemn journey to Westminster Abbey, where it was received by a contingent of guards who carried it into the church for the funeral service. The funeral proceedings for Elizabeth I were officiated by the Dean of Westminster, Dean Andrews. Following the service, the coffin was solemnly conveyed to the Henry VII Lady Chapel. There, amidst the solemn grandeur of the Tudor mausoleum, Elizabeth's body was laid to rest in the same vault as her grandparents, Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. This act of interment was a profound display of the deep reverence and respect the people of England held for their queen, serving as a monumental tribute to her legacy. In 1607, several years following her passing, Queen Elizabeth's remains underwent a significant relocation. Her successor, James I, directed the transfer of Elizabeth's coffin to a newly crafted tomb, which prominently featured her likeness. Additionally, James decreed that Elizabeth be interred alongside her sister's coffin, positioned directly beneath hers. This symbolic gesture underscored Elizabeth's pivotal role during her reign compared to her sister, Mary I, also known as Bloody Mary. The grandeur of Elizabeth's tomb matched her stature, as she was laid to rest in a spacious chamber opposite Mary Queen of Scots, the mother of James I. The relocation of Elizabeth's body and subsequent reburial incurred a cost of 46 shillings and 4 pence. Today, the magnificence of Elizabeth's tomb endures, with Mary Queen of Scots still resting beneath her half-sister. However, in the 1800s, the sanctity of Elizabeth's burial vault was violated by curious individuals at Westminster Abbey. In 1880, Dean Arthur Stanley of Westminster Abbey published a book detailing his exploration of the Abbey's vaults and burial sites. Granted special permission by Queen Victoria, Stanley sought to compile an inventory of the contents within. Among his discoveries was the coffin of King James I, originally located in the burial vault shared by Elizabeth I, Henry VII, and Elizabeth of York. During his exploration, Stanley ventured into adjacent chambers connected to the royal vault. As he delved into an underground aisle situated at the eastern end of Queen Elizabeth's tomb, he noticed a small aperture in the walls. Curiosity piqued. He cautiously navigated through this opening and found himself within the burial vault of Elizabeth I. To his astonishment, he observed only 2 coffins within, both undisturbed and bearing witness to centuries of reverence. Arthur Stanley documented his findings upon entering Elizabeth's burial vault. His excavation efforts had nearly exposed the wall adjacent to the eastern end of Elizabeth's monument. Through a small aperture, Stanley gained a glimpse into a narrow chamber directly beneath her tomb. It became immediately apparent that this vault contained only 2 coffins, leaving no doubt that they housed the remains of Elizabeth and her sister Mary. The larger coffin, bearing a more distinct shape resembling a human form, rested atop the other. Despite the passage of time, there was no evidence of disorder or decay within the vault. However, Stanley noted that the wooden casing surrounding Elizabeth's coffin had deteriorated, causing part of the lid and vault to crumble away. Although no coffin plate could be found initially, a fragment of the lid with slight carving provided a clue. This discovery prompted a more thorough search, ultimately leading to the identification of the original inscription. The coffin lid bore a poignant emblem, a delicately crafted rose, etched with simplicity yet deep meaning, positioned at the center. Flanking the rose were the initials ER, signifying Elizabeth Regina, and below, the memorial date 1603. The lid itself featured intricate molding, adding to its ornate appearance. Crafted from sturdy oak, the coffin case measured an inch thick, while the decorative lid, adorned with inscriptions and paneling, boasted a finer half-inch thickness, resting atop the sturdy cover. Red silk velvet covered the entirety of the coffin, meticulously draped over not only the sides and ends, but also the adorned oak lid, adding an additional layer of richness to the ensemble. This striking sight encapsulated the essence of a narrow tomb, symbolically uniting the two queens in eternal rest, companions of the same throne and final resting place, awaiting the promise of resurrection. The solemn dignity of Queen Elizabeth's repose, undoubtedly in accordance with her own wishes atop her sister's coffin, stood in stark contrast to the disarray and decay of the Stuart vault. This juxtaposition highlighted the poignant significance of her resting place, underscored by the emptiness of the surrounding space that once brimmed with life. The vault was promptly sealed shut, marking the final occasion it was opened. This detailed description provides the most vivid depiction of Queen Elizabeth Ruffern's burial vault to date. While there may have been other instances when the vault was opened, such occurrences remain undocumented. Today, the remarkable tomb of Queen Elizabeth continues to stand as a testament to her enduring legacy. Beneath the surface, this magnificent final resting place honors the memory of a remarkable queen. Thank you for watching, and to show your support, please consider subscribing for more fascinating historical content. Thank you.